Welcome to the Uncle's channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy Color game. Today focus on a game called Star Wars for the original Game Boy. Now this game is based pretty much exclusively on the very first Star Wars movie, or the first one that was made anyway, A New Hope. And it actually follows the storyline for that pretty darn well as far as like beat for beat, the core moments or core plot points here. But not only does the story match up with the movie really darn well, the gameplay also follows the movie pretty effectively too, as far as like giving you scenes where you're flying around in Luke's little hovercraft, scenes where he only has a blaster, scenes where he has a lightsaber. You get to play as Han Solo, you get to play as Princess Leia, you get to have scenes where you're guiding the X-Wing or the Millennium Falcon. I mean, there's like a ton of gameplay mixed up throughout the entire experience, and there's a lot jam-packed into the single Game Boy cartridge. However, there's also a lot of flaws in the game, and we're going to get to all of that as we go. We got to figure out, does the good parts of the game outweigh the bad parts? And that's what we're going to break down as we go through Star Wars for the original Game Boy. Now, this particular game did get moved up in the queue a good bit because the Victor 390 requests I cover it sooner than later. So naturally moves up in the queue. If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments down below. And just like Star Wars, I'll move it right on up. But let's go and get into the actual game. Now, I always like to start the videos up by looking at the box art for the game first. And the box art for Star Wars is pretty much exactly the same as the movie poster. I don't think they changed like anything from the movie poster over to the Game Boy cover here. And so like if you bought this game, you knew exactly what you were getting into. There was no question it's a Star Wars game, and pretty much all the scenes like on the cover here are covered inside the game, so it's also very accurate, and you get to play as all the characters on the screen as well, except for obviously like the enemies like Darth Vader and all that. But overall, great cover, and you knew exactly what you're getting. Now when you load up here, you have a very classic Star Wars intro. Of course, it says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars theme song comes blasting in 8-bit fashion, of course, and then the scrolling begins to happen here, pretty much giving you the story of A New Hope. And as far as I can tell, there's like word for word exactly what it was in the film, but I could be wrong. You can let me know in the comments down below if I got this mixed up here. If you continue to let it play here, like the music begins to change a little bit, and it's not just simply the Star Wars theme song, but also has this other really great Star Wars song off the soundtrack, and like everything on the soundtrack, but especially like the opening track here and the song that's going to be played in the credits are just absolutely fantastic for this game. And I've always loved 8-bit Star Wars re-editions, and they are really top tier, in my opinion anyway, for this Game Boy version. And then we get a little cutscene here of basically Darth Vader's ship firing at this little ship flying away from him. And as according to my memory anyway, this is R2-D2 escaping with Princess Leia's message, heading down to Luke Skywalker's planet. And of course it crash lands there, and then they have a little info screen, and it says that Luke and his uncle have purchased 2 droids from the local Jawas. This is of course R2-D2 and C-3PO, but one of them has gone missing, and this is going to be R2-D2, and it opens up to our first mission in the game, which we're going to try to find R2-D2 somewhere in the land of Luke here. And it has a little hovercraft scene here of Luke in his little hovercraft heading toward a cave. And then we get to experience the first gameplay element of the game, which is going to be the side-scrolling part. Now, I'd say it's probably a solid 80 to 90% of the game, but they are going to vary it up a good bit. But a great deal of it's going to be side-scrolling here. And Luke looks really great as far as like the graphics go. Of course, he has his little blaster here he can shoot. His jump animation looks really good. His run animation, his walk animation. And you're pretty much exploring this little cave here. And it's very linear in the first cave, and you find little items on your way out. And then once you go out of the cave, and you're basically in like a little open world area here where you can explore the entire planet of Tatooine, and you can pretty much go anywhere that you want to, and you can explore any of the caves in the surrounding areas, but you are trying to find R2-D2 first. And so you begin to hovercraft your way around the world here. However, like it's not as pleasant of a joyride as you might expect, because like as you're exploring out, you can't see very far in front of your hovercraft. And so like you're going to constantly run into like different robots, different monsters from the planet, and every time you hit one of the monsters, it takes away some of your HP, and a significant portion of your HP at that. And after you hit like 2 or 3 monsters, like you die and you lose a life, and you have to start all the way back over at the opening cave. And there are 2 speed options for your hovercraft. You can actually go pretty fast, but if you go fast, you're pretty much going to guarantee running into a monster or a robot. And pretty much the best way to navigate the area is just simply go as slow as possible in your hovercraft and try to avoid every single enemy that you encounter, because you have no way of actually shooting them or taking them out. And so you're pretty much journeying aimlessly around a little desert here. And I finally do find a little cave here, or more like a little robot hut. And you go in here, and it's going to be the cave that R2-D2 is located in. And at this point, the game is going to swap back over to being a 2D game, but some of the flaws from the hovercraft level or hovercraft area are going to pretty much be carbon copied over into the 2D area. And what I mean by that is the field of view in front of Luke here is so limited that any enemy that comes at you, if you're not firing your weapon constantly to try to take them out, you're going to get hit by them and have a significant portion of your HP taken away. And so the fun of like trying, to run away from enemies or sort of scout out enemies or sort of time your running and whatnot is just simply not there, because enemies just pop into the screen or pop into your field of view and take you out very fast. And the Jawas are going to be your main enemy here. And so the field of view is not only a problem though with taking the Jawas out, but it's also a problem when it comes to like the jumping in the game. And the jumping requires you to take pretty much almost blind jumps from one platform to another, and it's going to get way worse as the game goes on. But pretty much as you're jumping from one platform to the other, sometimes you don't even know there's a platform out there, and you simply have to do a blind jump, hoping, or a leap of faith out there that you're going to actually make that jump. Or if you have to fall down a platform, you can't see down below you, and you sort of have to take a chance and fall down there to see if there's actually a platform for you to land on. And so like the game is way too zoomed in on Luke to actually be able to see the environment effectively here. And so I would much rather swap this out for a zoomed out view, a little bit less detailed version of Luke, and to be able to see the surroundings to make the gameplay just a little bit better. But the field of view is not the only issue here. It's actually compounded with a second issue that's also really annoying. And that's the idea that you have these like little speed treadmills or these little airways that sort of shoot Luke up really fast. And if you jump when you're on these little treadmills, Luke just goes flying off in the distance. Like a anti-gravity machine is what Luke's getting a hold of. And he's just flying around the screen. And when you're doing this and you can't see very far in front of you, man, like you're just sort of flying all around the screen, and death is pretty much imminent here as you're going to fall tons of stories down. And this game actually has fall damage as well. So if you fall too far down, you actually get damage, or you can actually die from falling. You can fall on spikes, you can fall on enemies. And also, speaking of the enemies, there's one thing I forgot to mention earlier, and it's the idea that when you hit an enemy, there are no invincibility frames. You get knocked back, but you actually don't get to be invincible. And so the enemy can like pretty much just ram into you and kill you almost immediately. Or if you like fall on top of an enemy's head here and you can't actually knock off from one side to the other, your life just zaps away in no time. And so there's just so many ways to die in the game, and almost every single one of them feels just sort of like a little bit on the unfair side. And I'm not complaining about a game difficulty, because I like difficult games, but this game here just like sets you up for failure in so many ways as far as like just sort of how the game was made. But after dying multiple times and a few continues here, I finally do find R2-D2, and once I find him, it teleports me back outside the cave, and now we're on a mission to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. And you're basically in your little hovercraft here once again, and you pretty much have an open area to journey through and try to find every single cave searching for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I don't know if there's like any direction on like which cave to search through first, or like any map you could access. I couldn't find any sort of map here, and so I'm like wandering around the area trying to find Obi-Wan. I go into all these different caves, and I'm just going to break them down one by one here in a second. But pretty much all the caves are going to play out the same. You sort of journey through it, try to find Obi-Wan. If he's not in that cave, you collect these little Millennium Falcon tokens, and they're going to act like it's a shield for your Millennium Falcon when you get to that level. The game doesn't explain that to you. I figured it out a little bit later on. But for the most part, you're sort of wandering aimlessly around the desert here, trying to explore all these caves, trying to find Obi-Wan. And it's going to be very easy to die. It's going to be very easy to get lost. And I just can't say like it's designed really well. I feel like there's a great game hidden inside this game, but I feel like it's really hard to find. You have to really stick with the game to find the rewarding qualities. Now, the first cave that I end up going into is going to be a barrage of rocks. They're going to be catapulting down at you, and these are not as affected by the field of view, and so you can jump over the rocks pretty easily. But as you journey through it, you're going to come across these giant insect creatures, and they actually remind me a little bit of a enemy from Elden Ring. I'll put a little clip in the video here, and you can see if you agree or not. I don't know what the name of the enemy is in Elden Ring. I don't know what the name of the enemy is here in Star Wars, but it's like an insect humanoid creature, and it can like open up and shoot these little spikes or these little, I don't know, needles out at you, and a really cool design here. And all you have to do is sort of duck down, fire your little blaster at them, take them out, and you sort of journey through here, taking them out, taking out the little bugs or little bees that are coming after you as well. Not a super hard level once you get past the field of view here, but eventually you're going to get to the end of it. You find the little Millennium Falcon tokens, and of course you collect those, and like I said, they're going to help you with your Millennium Falcon levels later on. And then you exit out and you're back in your hovercraft again to go and find another cave to explore, trying to find Obi-Wan or these little Millennium Falcon tokens. Now, the second cave that I go into is not going to have any of the insect enemies, but it's going to be full of these little rodents here. Reminds me of like little prairie dogs to some degree, because they like burrow out of their hole, they come and try to attack you, and you actually can't kill them. The only hope that you have here is sort of jumping around them, hope that they fall to their death down to spikes down below. And trust me, I tried to blast them away with the blaster many times. Never worked. And of course, you journey through the level here, get yourself another little Millennium Falcon token, and exit on out. Now, the third cave that I found really had nothing new in it, so I'm going to skip over that one. And then the fourth cave I came across is going to have more of the insect enemies. However, there's like one here that reminds me a great deal of like I'm going to call it a insect Darth Maul, because it really reminds me of like the overall outfit of him. but at the same time, it's definitely more of an insect creature. And so, I don't know, very hard to take out. You have to like really time as far as like jumping down there, take a few shots, jump back, wait for him to sort of come to the edge, sort of time your shots out. You cannot win this by just simply running after him or trying to head him off of your shots. You have to run away and time your attacks out. And just like the other caves, you journey through it, take these enemies out, go through the awful platforming that the game presents you, and you eventually get a Millennium Falcon token here as well. Now the 5th cave that I go into is actually going to be the cave with Obi-Wan in it. You journey through it, same techniques as the rest of them, and you find Obi-Wan. He actually gives you your dad's lightsaber. So now you have 2 weapons. So if you press select, you can go and select Luke once again, and you can choose to have his blaster or his lightsaber. And the lightsaber is actually a really good like one-hit kill weapon for the majority of the enemies. However, you have to be like really close to him, and your timing has to be pretty much on point in order to get that kill. Otherwise, you're going to take damage. And so for the most part, I actually use the blaster more than the lightsaber, but the lightsaber is definitely a more powerful weapon. But Obi-Wan does tell you to go to the town of Alderaan. If I'm saying that correctly, if my Star Wars pronunciations are off, you can let me know down below. But you go to Alderaan, and truth be told, I didn't know where to go on the map here, and I did look up like where Alderaan is on the map. It's in the far bottom right-hand corner, and when you journey down there, you are now in a different 2D scenery. You're now in like a little marketplace here, which is pretty much dead on for like the scene you go to inside the movie with Obi-Wan to try to find Han Solo. And I do try out the lightsaber here for the first time, and you can see how quick I can take out the stormtroopers that you encounter and just sort of journey through the level here. You can also go into the cantina here, and this is going to be pretty much where you find Han Solo, and it's going to match up to the movie pretty much dead perfect, all the way down to like the little musicians in the background playing the same instruments that they played inside the movie. I mean, I don't know, the faithfulness to the scenery and the characters and the background and the music, the game really went above and beyond for all of that. But you can journey through here, and you finally get to the far end, and you finally get to meet Han Solo. And when you talk to him, he says that Chewie has told him that we're looking for the Alderaan system, and he's going to help us get to there. We simply need to find the Millennium Falcon, and now you have Han Solo on your team. If you press select, you can then select Han Solo, and you can play as him. And Han Solo is an excellent character for the game. Instead of simply having the one-shot blaster, he has a 2-shot blaster, much more powerful than Luke's. And he's my character of choice until I die as him. And once you die as him, it's a permanent death, and you never get him back until you start the game all the way over. Luke is the only character that will always respawn after continue, and so a little disappointing there. But while we're on the topic of the pause menu, you can see other characters here as well, like C-3PO, R2-D2, Obi-Wan, Princess Leia, and all the characters on the left-hand side just simply offer you advice, and all the characters on the right-hand side have the ability to be played as at some point or another in the game. It's sort of like the NES Ninja Turtle game. Like you can select any character that you want, and you can sort of rotate between the 3 of them, and the health bar is different for every one of them. And so like when one character is about to die, swap over to another character, take them all the way down to their bottom part of the health, swap over to another one until you find life to swap back and refill the characters that you want. And so it reminds me a great deal of like the gameplay of TMNT for the NES. But at this point I'm playing as Han Solo. I'm journeying through the little hangar here, seeing all the ships in the background, trying to find the Millennium Falcon. And eventually, after taking out numerous stormtroopers, I finally found my way to the Millennium Falcon. And Han Solo tells Chewie to get us out of here. And now we have our first, spaceship level or first-person shooter spaceship level. And you're basically got your little shields here, and you're basically just sort of trying to dodge or avoid all the asteroids coming at you. And I figured out if you just simply hold down the bottom left and just sort of aim in that direction, all the asteroids go on by you. And you can't actually be hit this way, and you sort of have to wait to level out. Now, I guess it sort of takes the fun away from it, but after dying a couple times, you get tired of it, and you just simply want to finish the level up. And so you just simply hold down the bottom left, and you can have the spaceship level taken out in no time. And then we get a little cutscene here of our Millennium Falcon journeying into the Death Star, and we're going to try to find Princess Leia and rescue her. And so now we're inside the hangar of the Death Star, and you can see like all the little TIE fighters in the background. The backgrounds are always pretty fantastic here. You journey through, you kill more stormtroopers off. And then C-3PO said he found like a computer area, and Obi-Wan wants R2-D2 to like hack into the computer. And so now we're like searching for a computer mainframe, and the best I can come across for a computer mainframe is this little area here, and there's like a little glass container here, and these little lasers coming down trying to attack you, and you have to climb this little ladder up and keep jumping off and firing at the little center of the little computer area, I presume. And once you do enough times on that, it blows up, and you can of course advance more. And I assume this is what they're talking about by hacking into the computer. I don't remember this part in the movie, but it very well could have been there. I've not seen the movie in probably 10 years maybe. It's been a while since I've watched it, and I've only watched it maybe 2 or 3 times outside of that, so there's some things I'm probably forgetting. But after you blow up the crystal here, then you move on to the next part of the Death Star, and it's going to be like a little elevator maze, and there are so many different paths that you can go on, and you're trying to find Princess Leia through here, but there's like different elevator paths, and of course different ones lead to different stormtroopers and different enemies, and you're trying to find your way through all this. And at this point, like, I started thinking, like, kids who played this game like back in the 90s, there's almost no way they beat this game, at least on the first try, or maybe even like the 50th try, without like the Game Genie or some sort of cheat code or something like that, or some sort of player's guide, because like this is a almost impossible game to figure out as far as like where to go. And even when you figure out where to go, it's incredibly hard because of like the gameplay mechanics they put in place, like that limited view or sort of the jumps and whatnot. And so, like, I don't know, the game is very, very difficult to work your way through, and I just can't see a lot of kids in the 90s having the patience to finish this game up. But correct me if I'm wrong. If you beat this game way back in the day, feel free to let me know. But I can't see a lot of kids actually finishing it. But eventually you're going to get to a little chamber here. You go inside, a little cutscene of Princess Leia laying there. Looks like Kate Winslet from Titanic. And so you basically recruit her on your team, and you can now play as Princess Leia. However, like when the game swaps over to you automatically, and if you have Luke Skywalker holding the lightsaber, the animations here are actually going to be swapped. And so like it's an error or glitch in the game. So like if you have Princess Leia and you press the attack button, and it actually shows the animation of Luke Skywalker and his lightsaber, and then it goes back to the animation of Princess Leia immediately after that. Now, if you do select Princess Leia in the select screen, it takes that animation away, and she goes back to simply having a little blaster. But if you don't swap it over, you actually get a little glitch in the game of Princess Leia with a lightsaber of the animation of Luke. It's a weird little thing here, but it's definitely not meant to be, and you can't do it any other time in the game. It's only at this one specific moment. But I play as Princess Leia until I die, and of course I can't ever bring her back because it's a permanent death for any character except for Luke. And so that's a very short-lived time period because it's so easy to die in the game. And of course now I'm playing as Luke for pretty much the rest of the game because I've killed everybody else off. And pretty much the rest of the Death Star here is going to be like endless jumps, different skyways you have to go across, different little elevators. And it's very much of a headache trying to figure out like where to go. And without a player's guide or a map, it could take you hours and hours to actually journey through all of these corridors with no reward whatsoever except for finally finding the correct route to go on. And eventually go through the little door here, and Han Solo says, what an incredible smell. And I figured he was talking about the garbage area, or the garbage pit that you fall into. And sure enough, this is the garbage pit from the movie, and the garbage level is continuing to rise, and a little garbage monster inside the area here is trying to attack you or trying to knock you off into the garbage, a little, I guess, sludge fest. And so you basically just have to sort of bait the monster up here and take one slice of your lightsaber, and it kills the monster off. But I guess if you're going to have like a boss in the game, this is your only boss inside the game. Because like there's no bosses before and there's no bosses after. You actually never even see Darth Vader in this entire game, which is pretty mind-blowing to a degree. A Star Wars game without seeing the core villain at all. But after you get out of the garbage pit, a few more platforming areas, and then you finally flee the Death Star here, and Han tells us to maintain the shields as he mans the guns. But however, when you play the level, you're actually the one manning the gun, so I'm not sure if there's like a mistranslation or somebody like typed it out wrong in the coding. I don't know, but it's going to be a first-person shooter level here where you're in the Millennium Falcon, and you're basically shooting down and taking out all the TIE fighters that are coming at you. And you see a little health bar in the top part here. However many Millennium Falcon tokens you collected earlier in the game determines how much life you have on the Millennium Falcon. And nowhere in the game does it tell you that. Nowhere in the game does it give you motivation to actually find those tokens in the first half of the game. And you can't go back and get any more. You pretty much get to this part of the game and you're sort of screwed if you didn't actually collect them. But evidently I did collect enough because I was able to actually finish this level up by taking out the TIE fighters. And then there's a little cutscene here of going back to a base. Luke gets out. He runs over and gets into a X-Wing. And when he gets into the X-Wing, he journeys back out. You have another level pretty much exactly the same as the last one. And you're pretty much taken down once again. Little TIE fighters coming at you. And then it transitions over to you going into the Death Star. And at this point, it's just like in the final scene of the game, you are basically traveling in a overhead view here of your little X-Wing, and you can take out any of the TIE fighters that are coming at you, and you can also drop bombs on them. When you finally get to the final opening here, you can drop bombs down into the Death Star, and just like in the movie, it blows up, and that's the close of the game. It does say, job well done, let the Force be with you always, 100% complete, and that is the closing of the game. There are no credits that are going to roll, just simply the screen for the remainder until you shut the game off. However, the closing theme here, the closing song, I don't know the song like title from the soundtrack, but it's definitely on the soundtrack and it's definitely in the movie. But the 8-bit rendition for it is fantastic here. I'll let a little bit of it play at the moment. excellent rendition of that song. And like I said, the soundtrack as a whole is pretty fantastic. So let's talk about the overall good parts of the game and the bad parts, and let's give it a number here. Now, I will say the music, like I mentioned just a second ago, fantastic pretty much throughout the entire experience. Really enjoyed the music. The graphics in the game, really enjoyed the graphics in the game. I really enjoy like the backgrounds, the character sprites, the little animations of the characters. The backgrounds are really well designed as far as like, pulling in different things from the movie to display sort of match the plot points. Excellent job. Also mixing the gameplay up a little bit as far as like having the first person parts where you're taking out the TIE fighters, having the side scrolling parts where you're journeying through the caves, having the overhead parts where you're commanding the X-Wing, or the overhead parts where you're in a little hovercraft exploring the overworld. I mean, there's a lot of really great different variety of gameplay. However, all of the gameplay, even though there's a great deal of variety to it, all of it brings its own like set of flaws, except for probably the first person shooting area. That's probably the most solid point inside the game. But anytime you play any other aspect of the game, the field of view is so small that you're going to make mistakes constantly, and they're never technically your fault because you just simply can't see that far in front of you. Also, like the jumping mechanics as far as like, just flying, when the super jumps, going off these little escalators here, or these like little treadmill parts. It's crazy like how fast you fly in the game, and you can just simply get killed in just no time. There are so many flaws as far as like the gameplay itself. I just can't get over like how difficult this game would be for a kid back in the 1990s just simply want to experience all these aspects of Star Wars. And I feel like if you're playing through it, you're never going to get past like the first little portion of the game, and you're never going to get to experience like all the other cool stuff they've actually developed for Star Wars fans to journey through and see. And so like that's actually like a real shame to me. There's like a great deal of Star Wars fan service throughout, and the majority of people never got to see it because they could never get past like the first or second level or first or second cave in the first area. And even in the first area, like there's no explanation of like where to go, like no map system, no explanation of like why to collect any of the tokens, which are going to affect your performance later on in the game. And if you don't collect them, you're pretty much dooming yourself later on. And so like there's a lack of explanation, there's a lack of map system, there's a lack of viewing distance, there's a lack of good gameplay elements. And so like even though the game has a lot of good variety to it, has a lot of really cool Star Wars stuff in it, a lot of cool Star Wars music, a lot of cool Star Wars graphics, the game as itself is a very flawed game. And so I'm going to give the game a 30 out of 10 just simply because the flaws just really knock it down to being a not very fun game to play. And pretty much the only redeeming factor is given to 30 points is just simply the idea they did a great job with the Star Wars aesthetics, mixing the gameplay up a little bit, as well as the music. Those are really the most redeeming factors. Actually, the Star Wars stuff is pretty darn strong as far as that. We might move it up to a 4. We'll say a 3.5 out of 10. That's my final score for Star Wars on the Game Boy. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this game? If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments down below as well. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.